between October and the end of December, this client had seen a 15% increase to cash collections.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Operator Insights. I'm here today with Arthur Loya, who is our Assistant Vice President of Billing Services. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Julie.
Thanks for being here. So Arthur, can you explain or define for us what unbilled management is?
Absolutely. Unbilled management is not a term that is commonly referred to in revenue cycle management. Oftentimes, it is referred to as a singular, whether it's discharge not final billed or discharge not final submitted, which are distinct and separate from one another. Most importantly, it is the standardization within these two critical components by optimizing current processes within a health system or organization, leading a persistent effort as a collective on effectively making decisions timely on the reduction of unbilled accounts, unbilled claims, by maximizing departmental performance related to discharge not final billed and discharge not final submitted. Now, within that, you have a collective effort, right? And that collective essentially are your key stakeholders from a front end, middle, and back end operation, right? And each of these key stakeholders play a critical role and are responsible on driving results and efforts, mitigating any increases within unbilled. That is unbilled management.
How do you drive accountability when you don't own, right, the everyday, day-to-day workload and scope of those folks that you need to be good participants in this program?
I do feel the unbilled management program has to be ingrained in your daily operations. It has to be your second nature, right? And you have to have a collective goal. And essentially it is that you are attempting to or wanting to resolve essentially your decrease unbilled management, whether it's discharge not final billed, discharge not final submitted. You have to have that collective goal and that buy-in from many of these departments, truly. Many of your key stakeholders, as you mentioned, they don't necessarily report to you. It could be patient access, it could be HIM and coding.
The lab
department,
sure.
Your ancillary areas, right? It is ultimately sending the message saying, listen, we are in this together, giving them the understanding of what implications does unbilled management have to an organization or health system. And essentially, it is educating, right? It's constant education, it's constant training and development to say these are the implications of what we currently have, right? The implications, whether it's an increased days within discharge not final billed. It could also be the increase to discharge not final submitted, right? And then from a downstream effect, it is by far the quickest way to turn cash around, right? I mean, we know that by pushing unbilled, right, in the term unbilled, again, those two components, it is by far the way to accelerate cash within revenue cycle solutions.
Sure. No, I think that's a good description. So tell us about a success story, right? You've been doing this a while, you've been with Ensemble for quite some time, and at any given time, you're dealing with different, could be regions of folks, could be different healthcare systems that have other things happening, right?
Yep.
So tell us about an experience that you had that really shows the success of that education and inclusion that you talked about.
Yep, most definitely. So I'll give you a few.
Okay.
Sometime over last summer, obviously, we were in the midst of a pandemic, right? And many of our clients, unfortunately, were impacted by this, right? And so one of the things that I will say is a success to Unbilled Management, or the program that I've been involved with, was leave no stone unturned, right? Leaving no stone unturned, the acceleration of Unbilled. We had a practice of essentially edit and error resolution within greater than 3 days. In order to accelerate cash, we had to focus and really challenge ourselves to the edit and error resolution of Unbilled Management to 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
To leave no stone unturned, right? If there was a way to move discharge not final billed, if there was a way to move discharge not final submitted, it was how quickly can I get that, right? How quickly can I move, and one, timely yet effectively, right? So I would say that's one of the successes. Over the summer, as I was saying, a few clients, and I'll just say one in particular, we started seeing spikes within discharge not final billed, anywhere between, I want to say, $27 million, right? Impactful, large, right? And especially for this size facility. And so, again, kind of going back to the drawing board and saying, all right, how can we truly impact discharge not final billed and discharge not final submitted, so unbilled? So we started hosting daily, I know it sounds quite aggressive, but we started hosting daily calls with our core group of functional areas. So patient access, HIM and coding, revenue integrity, our charge master team, billing, et cetera, right? Many of the clinical departments as well. And we started having these meetings daily. Within almost 2 weeks, we saw significant decreases to unbilled, down to about $7 million.
Oh, wow.
So it's a significant drop to unbilled, right? So the manpower behind unbilled truly is the key success, right? And again, going back to the statement, you have to have it integrated within your daily operations, or else it just won't work. Right. You have to set expectations. You have to hold that accountability, right, on saying this is what your department impacts from an HIM and coding standpoint. It is working with those operators, right? It's that give and take. It's that, all right, well, I see that you're having issues or barriers, right, in moving that. How can I help aid in some of those barriers? What obstacles can we remove together? What are some of the challenges, right? So it is that flow. Most recently also, another success to that, we recently went live with a client, also over the summer of last year, rather large health system, who was in the midst of an Epic conversion, integrating 11 health systems into their existing facilities, and that occurred October 1st. We stood unbilled up, I want to say 45 days into this go live, which was June 1st. We presented Unbilled Management programs to the masses, the collective, and within that process and time period, we went live with this client October 1st, and I can tell you that if you know how that works, that Epic conversion, a lot of facilities take major hits financially, 30, 60, 90, up to 90 days to kind of bounce back from that Epic conversion. I can tell you that between October and the end of December, this client had seen a 15% increase to cash collections. So it's quite impressive,
amazing.
right? So I
Yeah.
think that from a success story, I would say that that is ultimately the success, is that it is the efficacy of unbilled management, that it does work. Again, it just has to be ingrained in your day-to-day operations.
I think, Arthur, when I hear you talk, it's unbilled management being pivotal, right, to
Yes.
getting claims out the door, getting cash in, and really acting like an air traffic controller, right? I mean,
Yes.
you and your team have a lot on your plate. A lot of folks come to, get questions answered, right? What tools or, things that you guys do to help explain to those, right, to do the education? What tools do you use to explain the why, right, to a clinical person that may not know anything about revenue cycle, but is deeply ingrained and important in the process?
Yeah. So, I'm a firm believer of continued education, right? And it is a team effort, collaborative, right? And so, to essentially to explain the why, right, or what tools, there are times outside of just our weekly cadence of unbilled management that we spend time with many of the functional areas, whether it's, again, patient access or whatnot, many of our clinical departments that are not accustomed or have never heard of the term unbilled management, but it is the time and dedication that we take with each of these areas. Partnership is huge. It's huge. It's a huge. We would not be successful without it, right? There is the constant training and education, whether it's how do I resolve this edit or error, right? Why is this bumping up against, an MUE or a charge-related issue, right? NDCs related, right? Pharmacy and whatnot. And so there is a lot of that constant education, that ad hoc, that one-on-one moment outside of the larger group. And so I would say that is essentially kind of one of the tools that makes it successful, is that, and it's continued, and even within the larger group, it is something that is expected, right? We encourage that open dialogue, right? I think that there are moments in time where I may not know everything, and through conversations,
Sure.
through unbilled management, HIM encoding the leaders of that group and saying, hey, listen, this is how you essentially would resolve this particular item. Or then you get revenue integrity involved, and it's magic. It's magic, ultimately.
It is magic. You guys do magic, for sure. So what do you think keeps you here? What do you love about Ensemble, aside from the leadership? You mentioned leaders, and that's really important, but
The continued challenge. I'm constantly being challenged, and it is the constant growth. It's that, again, I go back to saying this, and I feel that, and I genuinely say this, that inclusivity, right? You hear that quite often, that it's a family, and so when I say that, being at Ensemble, it is something that is truly genuine. There is no fictitiousness. It is 100% vulnerability. But yes, I think that constant, when you think you know something, you're constantly surprised, and the amount of talent, right? That is in these four walls is also something that you don't see anywhere else, truly.
yeah.
But the constant partnership as well is definitely something that I've longed elsewhere, but I found it here.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome for you to say. All right, I'm going to ask you one more question, totally off, maybe off topic from
Okay.
unbilled management.
Okay.
But
All right.
tell me about a movie that traumatized you as a child.
Oh, I have many of those. I would say Jaws.
Jaws.
Yeah, so I grew up in California, Los
Okay.
Angeles. And as a child, I think my parents purposefully did this to me so that I wouldn't be afraid of the world, right? But one day we were at the beach, Santa Monica, and of course, after seeing this movie, my mom is trying to drag me into the water, and I am screaming bloody murder. Till this day, I'm in pools. I'm in a pool, and if I see some sort of shadow, my mind just starts turning, and I have got to get out of the water. And I love being around the water.
Yeah.
It is
Centers
peace.
you.
Yeah, it centers me. It's my zen.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's a great story. That is a great story. Thank you for sharing that
Yeah,
with us.
sure, it's quite embarrassing.
Well, we appreciate you joining us today, Arthur. I think you've provided great insight into a topic that is really important to us here at Ensemble.
Thanks for having me.
Be on the lookout for more operator insights.